The unexpected alliance. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed under the light of 1,000 stars. High crystalline walls rose to impossible heights, capturing and refracting the luminescence of distant galaxies across polished floors. 27 species represented the most advanced civilizations in the known universe, all gathered in their usual formation of superiority and self-importance. Counselor Zex Talon of the Arcturian Collective adjusted his ceremonial robe, mandibles clicking in irritation as the latest reports scrolled across his neural interface. His species had mastered faster-than-light travel 8 millennia ago. They had transformed barren worlds into garden paradises, harnessed the power of dying stars, and unlocked the genetic secrets of evolution itself. And yet here they were, discussing humans. "This proposal is absurd," he chittered, silencing the chamber with the harmonics of his voice. "Humans have barely managed to colonize their own solar system. Their technology is crude, their diplomatic capabilities primitive. Why would we even consider them as potential allies?" Supreme Counselor Thela, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate hovering sphere, pulsed with colors of concern. "The Void Eater's approach, Zex Talon. Already 3 outlying systems have gone dark. Our conventional defenses have proven inadequate. Then we develop unconventional defenses." Zex Talon's carapace flushed with indignation. "We do not seek aid from apes who only discovered nuclear fission a few centuries ago." Ambassador Lysithea of the Etherian Dominion, her luminescent form rippling with quiet energy, floated forward. "There is something you should see, Council." Her melodic voice sent harmonics across the chamber. "Our intelligence has been monitoring human military exercises. They are unusual." The central hologram activated, displaying grainy footage of human vessels in what appeared to be combat. The ships were ungainly, asymmetrical, and frankly ugly by galactic standards. They lacked the sleek elegance of Arcturian vessels or the crystalline perfection of Etherian craft. But they moved in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine. "What are they doing?" asked a bewildered representative of the Proxima Syndiarchy. "Those maneuvers violate every principle of efficient space warfare. They call it chaotic advantage," Lysithea explained. "Humans deliberately introduce randomness into their tactical algorithms. They believe predictability is a weakness." Zex Talon scoffed. "Primitive superstition." "Perhaps," Lysithea conceded. "But observe, these simulations show their unorthodox approach might be effective against the hive-mind coordination of the Void Eaters." The simulation played out, showing the seemingly erratic human tactics disrupting the perfect synchronization that made the Void Eaters so formidable. The council chamber fell silent. "Intelligence reports suggest the humans have developed unusual shielding technology as well," Thela added, pulsing with reluctant admiration. "Something about deliberate vulnerabilities." "Sacrificial shield sections," confirmed Lysithea. "They allow certain parts of their shields to fail in controlled ways, redirecting energy to create weapons-grade plasma bursts." Zex Talon's mandibles twitched in disbelief. "That's insane. No species would deliberately design failure into their defense systems." "Humans call it failing forward," Lysithea replied. "They've evolved in an environment where adaptation to failure is more important than perfection." The council debated for 17 standard cycles, but the reality of their situation became increasingly clear. The Void Eaters had already consumed 3 star systems. Conventional forces had been utterly ineffective. Even the mighty Arcturian battle fleets had been decimated without inflicting significant damage. They needed something different, something unpredictable. They needed humans. Captain Alina Reyes squinted at the alien transmission, then glanced at her XO with a raised eyebrow. "They want us to what now?" Commander Jackson looked equally perplexed. "Save them, apparently. The same Galactic Council that's been blocking our application for membership for the past 40 years. Alina leaned back in her chair, the worn leather creaking under her weight. "The ones who called us barely evolved primates with delusions of adequacy." "The very same." Jackson couldn't hide his smirk. Seems those Void Eaters are kicking their advanced asses across 3 sectors. Elena drummed her fingers on the battered metal desk. The United Earth Defense Force headquarters on Mars was a far cry from the gleaming spires of the Galactic Council. Everything here was functional, recycled, repurposed. Humanity hadn't had the luxury of unlimited resources or centuries of peace. "Get me Admiral Chen," she decided. Within hours, the highest echelons of Earth's military and political leadership had convened. The alien delegation arrived shortly after, representatives from the Arcturian Collective, the Etherian Dominion, and the Galactic Council itself. Councillor Zex Talon could barely conceal his disdain as he surveyed the human facility. "This is your military headquarters. It's primitive." Admiral Chen, a compact woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles, smiled thinly. "We prefer efficient, Counselor. Not all of us can afford crystal spires and antimatter fountains." "You misunderstand," Zex Talon replied. "Your species has had spaceflight for less than 5 centuries. You should be millennia away from developing the technologies we've observed." "Necessity," Elena said simply. "We didn't have the luxury of gradual development. Earth was dying. We had to adapt or perish." "Show them the Lazarus Project," Admiral Chen instructed. Elena led the alien delegation through a series of security checkpoints to a massive underground hangar. What they saw there made even the normally composed Etherian ambassador flicker with surprise. The hangar contained what appeared to be a graveyard of salvaged alien ships, vessels from a dozen different species, many of them ancient, all of them modified, hybridized, and repurposed with distinctly human pragmatism. "You scavenged our abandoned technologies." Zex Talon's mandibles clicked rapidly, and what Elena had learned was the Arcturian expression of shock. "We prefer recycled," Elena replied with a smile. "Your species abandons perfectly good ships just because newer models come along. On Earth, we learn to make do with what we have." The alien delegation moved through the facility with increasing amazement. They observed human engineers integrating seemingly incompatible technologies, military strategists developing tactics that defied conventional logic, and scientists reimagining physics principles that the Council had considered immutable. "Your species thinks sideways," Ambassador Lysithea observed, her luminescent form pulsing with fascination. "Where we see limitations, you see possibilities. That's what happens when you evolve on a death world." Commander Jackson said matter-of-factly, "Earth tried to kill us every step of the way. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, climate change. Then we started trying to kill each other. A species shaped by conflict," Zex Talon murmured, his earlier disdain now tempered with something approaching respect. In the Strategic Command Center, Admiral Chen laid out the situation. "The Void Eaters adapt to conventional attacks, correct? They analyze patterns and develop countermeasures." "Yes," confirmed Thela. "Their hive mind processes tactical data faster than any computing system we've developed. They anticipate our maneuvers before we execute them." Chen smiled grimly. "Then we give them something they can't anticipate. Show them Chaos Protocol." The holographic display activated, showing a combat doctrine unlike anything the Council representatives had ever seen. Where their tactics relied on precision, synchronization, and overwhelming force, the human approach embraced controlled chaos, deliberate unpredictability, and asymmetrical engagement. "This is madness," Zex Talon protested. "There's no coherent strategy." "That's exactly the point," Elena explained. "The Void Eaters expect logic. We'll give them humanity." As the briefing continued, the Council representatives began to understand that beneath the apparent randomness was a deeper pattern, one based not on mathematical precision, but on psychological warfare, intuitive timing, and a uniquely human comfort with improvisation. "You're not just fighting," Lysithea realized, her form brightening with understanding. "You're playing." "War is a human game," Admiral Chen said simply. the oldest one we know. By the cycle's end, the alliance was formalized. The Council would provide resources and intelligence. Humanity would provide the one thing the advanced civilizations of the galaxy had lost over millennia of peace and prosperity: the ability to think like desperate survivors rather than comfortable conquerors. As the alien delegation prepared to depart, Zex Talon approached Alina privately. "Captain Rice, I must confess my initial assessment of your species was prejudiced." "Understandable," Alina replied diplomatically. "We're not exactly what you'd expect." "Indeed." The Arcturian hesitated. "There is something that troubles me. Our intelligence suggests your fleet consists of only 50 capital ships. The Void Eaters have thousands." Alina's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Don't worry about our fleet, Counselor. What we lack in numbers, we make up for in creativity." As the Council ship departed Earth orbit, Zex Talon gazed down at the blue-green planet. For the first time in his long life, the Arcturian felt something unfamiliar: doubt in his species' superiority. These humans, these upstarts, these evolutionary newcomers, they had done in centuries what took his kind millennia. And now the fate of the galaxy might rest in their primitive, adaptable hands. The unconventional defense. Counselor Zex Talon stood motionless on the observation deck of the Council flagship Eternal Radiance, his compound eyes fixed on the view screen with a mixture of horror and disbelief. "Those are the human combat vessels," he finally managed, mandibles clicking rapidly. Supreme Counselor Thidla's containment sphere pulsed with sympathetic colors. "I'm afraid so." The human fleet had arrived at the rendezvous point near the Cygnus Rift, where the Void Eaters' advance had finally been slowed by the combined remnants of the Council forces. But instead of the sleek warships Zex Talon had expected, the space before them was filled with what could only be described as junk. Human vessels appeared to be cobbled together from mismatched parts. Some incorporated sections of ancient derelict ships. Others were clearly repurposed civilian craft. Many were asymmetrical, with bizarre protrusions and seemingly random structural elements. Not a single one matched any recognized design philosophy of space combat. "This is madness," Zex Talon chittered. "Those ships violate every principle of efficient design. Some appear to be using external armor plates held on by nothing more than magnetic clamps." Ambassador Lysithea of the Etherian Dominion drifted closer to the view screen, her luminescent form rippling with curiosity. "Yet they traveled here faster than our own vessels could have managed. Curious." "Counselor Zex Talon," announced the communications officer, "the human flagship is hailing us." The main screen shifted to show Captain Alina Reyes. Behind her was a command center that made Zex Talon wince. Exposed wiring, mismatched control panels, and what appeared to be manual backup systems. Council representatives, Alina greeted them with a crisp nod. "The United Earth Defense Force is ready to engage. We've analyzed your data on the Void Eaters and developed our approach." "Captain," Zex Talon couldn't contain himself, "is this truly the extent of your fleet? These improvised vessels?" Alina's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. "Counselor, with respect, every ship you see has survived combat scenarios your perfect vessels failed. We build from experience, not theory." Zex Talon would have responded, but alarms suddenly blared throughout the Eternal Radiance. "Void Eater Vanguard detected," called out the tactical officer. "Multiple contacts emerging from the rift." The view screen shifted to show the emergence of the enemy. Sleek, black vessels that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. They moved with perfect coordination, a deadly synchronized dance that had decimated the Council's best fleets. "All Council vessels, maintain position." Alina's voice came clearly through the command channel. "Let them come to us." "This is suicide," Zex Talon hissed. "We should engage at maximum range with coordinated fire." "Respectfully, Counselor," Alina replied. "That's exactly what they expect. That's why your previous engagements failed." The Void Eater vessels approached with their usual methodical precision, spreading out into an attack formation that had proven devastatingly effective against conventional defenses. Human fleet. Alina's voice rang out. Execute Chaos Protocol. Random Sequence Delta. Now, what happened next defied everything Zex Talon understood about space combat. The human vessels suddenly scattered in seemingly random directions, some accelerating toward the enemy, others performing wild evasive maneuvers, still others appearing to malfunction or go dead in space. There was no discernible pattern, no coordination, no logical strategy. The Void Eater formation faltered. Their hive mind can't predict what makes no sense, Lysithea observed, her form pulsing with excitement. Look, they're hesitating. Indeed, the perfect synchronization of the Void Eater fleet was showing signs of disruption. Vessels adjusted and readjusted, trying to account for the chaotic movements of the human ships. Then the humans attacked, not with the expected energy weapons or antimatter torpedoes, but with methods so primitive that they bypassed the Void Eater's advanced defenses entirely. Kinetic harpoons trailing carbon fiber nets, clouds of metallic dust dispersed in the enemy's path, electromagnetic pulses timed to irregular intervals, and most bizarrely, some human ships deliberately allowed themselves to be captured by Void Eater tractor beams, only to overload their own reactors in controlled nuclear detonations. They're sacrificing their own vessels. Zex Talon exclaimed in horror. No, Phaedala's containment sphere pulsed thoughtfully. Look closer. Magnification revealed that the sacrifice ships were mostly automated or minimally crewed, and as they detonated, the explosions created precisely shaped shockwaves that disrupted the Void Eater's formations, creating vulnerabilities the other human vessels immediately exploited. Captain Reyes, Lysithea called through the communication channel. Your vessel's near Sector 7. They appear to be intentionally taking damage. Ablative armor technology. Alina replied calmly. We let the outer layers get chewed up. Absorbs energy that we can redirect. Basically, we're using their attacks to power our own weapons. Zex Talon watched in stunned silence as the battle unfolded. The human tactics made no sense, followed no recognizable doctrine, yet were undeniably effective. The Void Eaters, for the first time since they had appeared in Council space, seemed confused. All ships, execute lightning strike, Alina commanded. Blackout protocols in effect. Suddenly, every human vessel shut down all non-essential systems, going dark in space. Even their life support systems powered down to minimal levels. What are they doing? Zex Talon demanded. Moments later, the entire battlefield was illuminated by a massive electromagnetic pulse that the human vessels had weathered by powering down. The Void Eater ships, still operating at full capacity, suffered catastrophic system failures across their fleet. Attack pattern Omega. Alina's voice rang clear. All ships, weapons free. The human vessels surged forward, no longer bothering with evasive maneuvers, striking directly at the disoriented enemy. Void Eater ships, temporarily blind and uncoordinated, fell one after another to the crude but effective human weapons. Impossible, Zex Talon whispered. Their technology is inferior in every way. But their thinking is not, Lysithea observed. They don't fight like a military. They fight like survivors. The battle raged for hours. Human vessels were lost, yes, but for everyone that fell, they took 3 Void Eaters with them. The remaining Council ships, initially hesitant, began to adapt human tactics, becoming less predictable, embracing controlled chaos rather than perfect synchronization. In the aftermath, as damage reports came in and recovery operations began, Captain Alina Reyes was invited aboard the Eternal Radiance for a formal debriefing. Your tactics were unorthodox, Zex Talon admitted, his earlier contempt replaced with reluctant respect, but effective. Alina nodded, her uniform scorched and torn from where she'd personally helped repair battle damage during the engagement. Humanity had to become unorthodox to survive, Counselor. Our entire history is a series of adaptations to threats that should have killed us. Yet there is something I don't understand, interjected Thela. Those ships, they're not your actual fleet, are they? They're too improvised. Elena smiled, the expression somehow both warm and predatory. Those ships are exactly what we needed them to be. The Void Eaters expect precision and perfection. We gave them the opposite. But your actual defense force, Zex Talon began, is what you saw today. Elena finished firmly. Counselor, you're still thinking like an Arcturian. You believe there must be a perfect fleet hidden somewhere, built to ideal specifications. There isn't. Humanity doesn't work that way. She stepped closer to the viewport, looking out at the debris field that had once been the Void Eater vanguard. We take what we have. We improve it. We adapt it. Nothing is ever finished. Nothing is ever perfect. But everything is always evolving. That's our strength. Lizithia's form glowed with understanding. You're an evolutionary force rather than a technological one. Exactly. Elena turned back to face the council representatives. Today we defeated the vanguard. Tomorrow the main fleet will arrive. We'll need to change our tactics entirely because what worked today won't work tomorrow. And you can do this? Zex Talon asked, genuinely curious now. Create new strategies on such short notice. Elena laughed, a sound rarely heard in the formal chambers of the Council flagship. Counselor, humans have been reinventing warfare since we were throwing rocks at each other. Adaptation isn't just what we do. It's what we are. In the days that followed, the Council watched in amazement as the human fleet transformed itself. Ships that had sustained damage were not simply repaired but reconfigured. Tactics that had proven effective were deliberately abandoned in favor of new, untested approaches. Even their command structure seemed fluid, with authority shifting based on expertise rather than rank. The main Void Eater fleet arrived exactly when predicted, moving with the same perfect synchronization as the vanguard. But this time, they faced not the chaotic swarm of the first battle, but a human fleet arranged in perfect, conventional formation. What are they doing? Zex Talon demanded. They're mimicking our failed tactics. Lizithia's form brightened with sudden understanding. Because that's what the Void Eaters least expect. They've adapted to counter human chaos. So we give them perfect order instead. Elena's voice came through the communication channel. For about 5 minutes anyway. The battle that followed defied description. The human fleet shifted tactics constantly, moving from perfect coordination to apparent chaos and back again. Individual ships transformed their roles mid-battle, converted from carriers to battleships to ramming vessels as needed. And throughout it all, Captain Elena Reyes coordinated with a calm confidence that belied the improvisational nature of their approach. When the last Void Eater vessel had been neutralized, Zex Talon found himself standing before the council, mandibles clicking thoughtfully as he delivered his report. We have gravely misjudged humanity, he concluded. Their ships may appear crude, their methods unorthodox, but they possess a quality our civilization has lost over millennia of peace and prosperity, the urgent creativity that comes from fighting for survival. He paused, gazing around at the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most advanced species. I propose that humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, effective immediately. Not as students of our wisdom, but as teachers of their own. And for the first time in recorded history, the council vote was unanimous. In her quarters aboard the makeshift human flagship, Captain Elena Reyes received the news with a tired smile. She gazed out at the battered, asymmetrical ships of her fleet, ugly by council standards, perhaps, but beautiful to her eyes. They were testaments to human ingenuity, to the species that had climbed from caves to the stars not through perfection, but through endless, relentless adaptation. So, Commander Jackson said, joining her at the viewport, they finally recognize us as equals. Elena shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. No, David, they recognize us as human. And that's much more important. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the civilizations that traversed the void between them. But from this day forward, humanity would travel among them, not as newcomers or primitives, but as what they had always been: survivors, innovators, humanity.